Today's a bonus episode of the Baseline Podcast, and with Josh Burris on vacation, I have asked Aaron Lynn to come join me, and we're going to be talking the Ncaa tournament. We'll be talking our bubble teams. We're going to be talking the underdogs. We're going to be talking about all these different things that have gone on, that will happen, and give our predictions to who's going to win it all. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, a bonus episode this week of the Baseline Podcast. And I'm joined once again. It's been about a 3-month stretch, but Aaron Lynn's back. The last time we were talking about before Ohio State played Michigan and they got their butts handed to them. So we are back to talk about basketball this time around. And Aaron, how is things going with Fifth and Goal podcast and all that fun stuff? How's everything going?
Well, it's going well. Thanks for having me back. And
of course.
You brought up the last episode I was on where I thought, Ohio State would take care of business. And then I got to sit in the big house while 100,000 Michigan fans kind of rained on my parade. So that was unfortunate. Hopefully my predictions today are a little bit better, but I'm doing well. Yeah, my name is Aaron. For those that do not know me, I am a co-host of the Fifth and Goal podcast, and things are going well over there. We just did our March Madness recording yesterday. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. We're on Instagram, Twitter, podcast platforms, YouTube, we're even on TikTok. So yeah, if you're a sports nut like myself, feel free to check us out. You can also find our website, fifthandgoalsports.com for the little plug there.
Yeah. And you have like a lot of, I could feel like the Johnny aspects coming out with all these like things that he does. It's just, the bracketology and all that.
We've got bracketology like you guys do. We've got our mock drafts up as well. We're getting ready for that. So
which they're terrible, by the way. I just posted mine. It's just bad. Well, every time there's a deal that happens. Yes. And I'm like, seriously, yep. Okay, whatever. So anyways, we're going to get into this. So we're going to talk first off, we're going to talk about the teams that didn't make it, things that maybe shocked us about, maybe some teams that we thought might be on the edge of it, and so on. So I want to start with you, Aaron. What are some of the things as you guys look through the bracket, maybe leading up to the game, the committee's decision on the bracket? What was your thoughts and what were some things that shocked you?
I'll start with the Big Ten because I'm sure a lot of your listeners like us are Buckeye fans. So we'll get our our hometown bias out of the way just right off the top. So the Big Ten, right? 9 teams in the tournament, the most of any conference. That was not a surprise. I think it's where some of those Big Ten teams got seeded was the surprise, and notably Michigan. Obviously, it's easy for us Buckeye fans to kind of poo-poo on Michigan, but I think across the college basketball landscape, most people were shocked. Partially the fact that Michigan got in at all, but that they avoided the first 4 games altogether, that they're an 11 seed. So that was interesting to me. I thought Ohio State was a pretty generous 7 seed.
That's very
my initial
generous.
reaction was, I'm like, oh, wow, Ohio State's a 7 seed. That's great. And then we got to see who they're playing in Loyola, Chicago.
And we all know what happens when you face religion and basketball together.
Sister Jean, man. So not super confident in the Buckeyes, but those were 2 things. There's a couple, random seeds. Like I thought South Dakota State is a fantastic team. They're like 30-2. I thought they should have been seeded higher. There's teams like Alabama. I thought, they were maybe given a generous seed as well. But overall, I didn't have any huge complaints. The Michigan one is probably the most puzzling.
Yeah, I would agree with you, I think, on that. I think if you look at, I think even some of the teams that, first off, the fact that the Big Ten has 9 teams, it's just funny that none of them are really a top seed. Like none of them are like, this is like the team, but yet they have all these teams. And I look at we'll talk about the first 4 coming up, and you're actually going to be attending that. By the way, I want to just put this, out here. Both your video, but also this video that we're doing now is not coming out until after the first 4. So I might totally butcher something that, okay, don't hurt me. Okay. I'm just the messenger. So as I was looking, I was speaking of the first 4 and stuff. First off, I love this first 4. I wish it would, go to like first 8. I don't know why. I think it's a really interesting aspect. Obviously, the one team that didn't make it the tournament was Liberty, that I was really bummed because Liberty has a guard that is tremendous.
Yep.
And the team as itself, actually I have a sort of connection with Liberty in a sense because one of my former mentors' brother played there, Elijah Cuffey. So I've just missed having Liberty there. I mean, they've had a great run, which they also said they weren't going to do any postseason tournaments, which is another story, which is interesting. But
that might have changed in the last couple days.
Okay,
it might have,
because I know they were talking about they were
for sure.
But one team that I thought in the first four that I was shocked a little bit. I have my bracket because old school. Wright State, by the way, making it was just kind of the coolest thing. Look at Wright State and you're like 16 seed. It doesn't fit like the Wright State feeling a little bit, but it's going to be really interesting because I've watched a couple of the highlights and I'm like, there's always a shot, there's one team's done it and it could be. So I don't really like you. I don't have any really crazy, some team didn't make it that I think that should have. Rutgers is the interesting one to me that I almost feel if you're going to flip flop a team, it should be Michigan and Rutgers. In my opinion,
I would agree.
Because you look at what Rutgers has done, they did a lot. You look at Michigan, and I'm going, point to it. That's what I've been asking people is point to it to me, and not just because they're Michigan, just in general their basketball season. Would you say that with Rutgers?
I would agree as far as flipping those teams. The challenging thing is Michigan has a tremendous strength of schedule. They've got a bunch of wins, and none of their losses are bad. But to a certain extent, that's because your strength of schedule is good. They're also 17-14. They're barely 500.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, they've got some good wins. They've avoided, for the most part, really terrible losses. But there was hardly any terrible losses on their schedule that they could have taken. So to me, that's a balance of like, well, I'd like to see you win more than 17 games of 31. And Rutgers kind of a different scenario where they've kind of struggled down the stretch a little bit. We're rolling through the Big Ten conference early, looked unstoppable at home. They're one of those weird teams that just, can't stop them at home. Auburn's like that.
Yeah.
There's a couple other teams like that. So spoiler alert, the NCAA tournament is not at these schools' home arenas. So we'll see what dynamic that plays. But I would agree. I think I would be perfectly content flipping Rutgers and Michigan. I think the team I probably have the biggest beef getting left out was Texas A&M.
I would agree with that one. I would agree with that one as well.
It seemed like there was a lot of criticism, and I think it was fair that the committee did not seem to really value what was done on Saturday and Sunday of conference tournaments.
I agree with that. I'm
not going to say they didn't watch them because I'm sure someone in that committee did, but it makes you wonder if they had the bracket ready to go. And then Texas A&M makes all the way to Iowa's a great example.
Like why?
They run the Big Ten. They pass the eye test like crazy. That team is so fun to watch. That offense. But again, so would I like to have seen Texas A&M there? Yes. But at the same time, you're also arguing like who's the 41st and 42nd best teams. If you're Texas A&M, don't lose 8 straight games in the regular season. Like I would have liked to see them in, but I don't feel bad for them. Don't go in an 8-game losing streak.
It's like what I tell people. I'm a Ohio State fan, diehard. So are you. If Ohio State wouldn't have made the tournament, let's say they would have lost 2 more games at the end of the year, I would have been like, you know what? They deserve it. Because I feel like if you don't show up at the biggest time of the year, you don't deserve it. And before we move into like the specific parts of the tourney, I want to just ask you as a sports fan growing up, obviously in Central Ohio, we've watched some of the craziest things happen in both conference tourney and NCAA tourney. What is for you that moment in a tournament, either game that just sticks out to you? It could be Ohio State or it could be anything you remember. I have one that I go back to 1,000 times in my head. And I don't think I'll be remiss of that.
I'll give you a couple. One's the Aaron Kraft shot over.
I was going to say that. That was
I figured that's one you were talking about. I love Aaron Kraft. I've got like an autographed picture with him. Like, loved Aaron Kraft. I know that's not a popular take for anyone that does not root for Ohio State, but absolutely loved Aaron Kraft. The defense just tremendous. The second one is actually in the women's tournament. So in 2018, the NCAA women's tournament, the Final Four was in Columbus. I actually got to work that tournament.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that year was insane because you had UConn, but you had teams like Texas A&M, you had Notre Dame, and I think Mississippi State was the other team I'm missing.
I think so.
All 3 games went down to the wire. I believe 2 of them went to overtime, and then there was that buzzer beater for the championship, for the win. I mean, it was just so surreal. The crowd was fantastic. There was just some excellent players. Kobe Bryant was there. My job was actually to run stats to all the broadcasters and stuff. So I would walk past Holly Rowe. I'm just walking past all these people in the first row. Kobe's sitting there because he was a huge UConn fan. So that was the whole thing was so surreal. The basketball was fantastic. And then my job at the end of the game was basically to keep the photographers from running onto the middle of the court. So it was a wild experience all around. But that was a really special experience.
Yeah, I would give that, I think I wish I could have gone to a tourney. I've never been to a college basketball tournament game, which is I really wish I could have. But one thing that I would say would be Evan Turner's shot in the conference tournament. Yeah. That will stick with me mainly because of Michigan. And for that week, I remember going back to school that day. That next week, a ton of Michigan fans at school. And I just sat. That's all I did. And I just said, Evan Turner is the best and you're terrible. But honestly, I think another one I have is the Final Four run with Greg Oden and them. Obviously they didn't win it, but I think it's more of a heartbreak for me because we had the football year and the basketball year against Florida. It just hurts.
I still have a hard time picking Florida. I don't have to worry about it this year, but any year Florida's in the tournament, I really struggle to pick them far because it's still that. I know it's almost 15 years later, right? But it still kind of eats at me.
It does.
But that Florida team was insane. If you look back, the really number of NBA players they had on that team was just ridiculous. I mean, obviously Joakim Noah, but you had Corey Brewer, you had Al Horford. I mean, man,
it was good. It was a good team. Many memories that the tournament brings us. Young boys that were, shooting in their backyard, whatever. But so we're going to talk about the tourney now. And the interesting thing about the tourney, if you don't know, by the way, and you're watching, because I know there's some people that don't necessarily watch sports and you're like, what is March Madness? Especially if you're here in Europe, it's it is weird. Okay. It's an American thing. We just kind of go with it. Basically there's 64 teams, they get selected. And then you play all these games and it gets down to the 4 and then it gets down to 2 and then you have a national champion. And one of the things in America that we do is we just pick them because, that makes sense because we're just going to think we're the geniuses of the world. And so we do that or whatever. So basically Aaron and I are just going to talk about some of our key matchups. We're going to talk about the first 4 games, and then we're going to kind of get all the way down to kind of our, what are some bad seeding, underdogs, those kind of things. And then we'll finish up by giving our picks, and we'll finish up a day. So Aaron, you're going to the first 4.
I am.
So that's going to be kind of fun. Which ones are you seeing all 4 of them?
I'm just going to the first 2. So the Tuesday games. Okay. And you guys, those games will have happened by the time you hear this podcast. Yes, that's true. But it's Texas Southern versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi is the first game, and then Indiana versus Wyoming is the second game. And that game is really interesting because I think a lot of people have Indiana at least advancing a game out of the first 4, and we'll talk about that because a lot of times you'll see a first 4 team. UCLA was a great example last year that made a big run. We've seen this before. It happens. So don't think that these games are meaningless. These first 4 games because it is
funny. Obviously, I'm a part of the 5th and Goal podcast bracket challenge.
Yeah, bracket challenge.
Which I'll put below so you guys can, if you guys want to. Actually, it'll be too late by then. But the bracket challenge, it's so weird because you can't choose the first 4, so you have to just hope that one of those teams is obviously going to make it that far. So my question is, we won't pick the rest of the games. Let's just pick the first 4. What do you think is going to happen in these first 4? Who do you got winning these games?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've not spent a lot of time on the first game, but I do think Indiana's going to win, partially because I just think they've been battle tested. They made a decent run in the Big Ten tournament. So I like them over Wyoming. Wyoming's a team that kind of slipped towards the end of the year. So a lot of times when I'm making these picks, I look at trends, who's playing well right now and who's not playing well. Mm-hmm. So I like Indiana. I'm assuming they'll have a decent crowd there tonight. That's a pro Indiana crowd. And then Wednesday, I'm going to go with Wright State. I don't know if they're actually going to win because they're going up against a guy on Bryant who is the leading scorer in the country in Division I basketball. So that's certainly a challenge, but Wright State's got a couple of really good scores. And then in the last game, I'm going to take Rutgers too. I think the Big Ten is strong. We'll see if that plays out. Of course, we said that last year, and the Big Ten kind of fell apart in the tournament, even though they had, I believe, 10 teams in the tournament last year. So that's not a lot of research went into those picks, but that's my first 4 picks.
Yeah, I would say the first one, honestly, I went Texas Southern because I just flipped a coin. So
yeah, that's the way to do it.
I didn't really think too much of that. I was going to go Wyoming leading up to like today. And then I thought about it. I'm like, Indiana is just one of those teams, right? They went through a lot of ups and downs, but at the end of the year, they showed that they were better than Ohio State. I'll straight up say it. They looked better. And I think they have that semi-home atmosphere tonight that I think that many teams won't have because you're so close to Indiana. And then I would also say then for Wright State, I'm going to go Wright State because if I don't go Wright State, then I feel like I'm betraying everything I know at Ohio. And then I'm going to go Rutgers. This one also could be flipped, but I think Rutgers has proven they can beat big teams. Obviously, it was at home, so we'll see. But I believe Rutgers, the strength of the Big Ten, I have to agree with you. I think the strength of the Big Ten is, I would say at times feels stronger than last year. But again, last year they were also good, and then it kind of crumbled, like you said. So I'm interested to see, but I have Rutgers beating Notre Dame. And let's just say you won't be seeing the end of Rutgers in my bracket. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. All right.
So we have the first 4 games. So if people don't realize, first 4 games, they happen before the rest of the tournament. They're taken care of. What are some of your, before we move on to like the picks and stuff, what are some of your key matchups in the first round of the tournament here so far, or before it starts?
Yeah. One game that I think a lot of people are paying attention to is in the Midwest region. You have the 4 seed Providence against the 13 seed South Dakota State. This is a team I referenced earlier. South Dakota State is really good. They're like, I think the record I want to say is 30-2. This is a team that has been to the NCAA tournament before. There is a ton of veterans on this team, and Vegas agrees because this is the I don't know if you want to call this smallest point margin ever for a 4-13 matchup. Providence is only a 3-point favorite here. That's the smallest ever. So I think and maybe it's so trendy of an upset that everyone's going to pick it and Providence is going to win. I don't know. But that one's super interesting to me. Honestly, any of the 6-11, the 5-12 matchups, I think is going to be really interesting because I'd say as a whole, I'd argue we have more parity in college basketball this season than we have in a long time, which could mean that we have one of the most chaotic March Madness experiences that we've ever had, which is also just exciting to think about.
Or we get a whole fooled and it's all 1 seeds in the Final Four.
Right. Yes.
I would agree with you. I actually was thinking I want to pick South Dakota State, but then I'm like, wait a minute. Wait. Everyone's saying that. Right. So why not choose the opposite? But I would say one of the matchups that I'm really looking forward to is in the East region. I'm looking at Virginia Tech versus Texas at 11 versus 6. That I believe Virginia Tech won. I think Texas was maybe a little too high in my book when it comes to a ranking. So that's kind of one of my misseedings or bad seeding. And I think Virginia Tech might have been a little too low. I think you could have, you could barge that they're better than San Francisco. I just, there's that everything like that. So that's one upset that I can see easily happening. And another one that, many people aren't really talking about. And I know you mentioned it earlier with Indiana is St. Mary's versus that winner of that game. I think out of these and the Rutgers versus Alabama, or that too, I think, but Alabama versus 11 seed. I think out of those two, I think that one against St. Mary's is more realistic because St. Mary's doesn't necessarily play outside of Gonzaga. They don't play a tough conference schedule. So for me, I think if Indiana can pull a win out against Wyoming tonight, they could make a run to at least to the round of 32, if not more. So those are my two. What do you think about those?
I agree. I do have Indiana doing exactly what you just said, is winning tonight and then beating St. Mary's. Of course, if they lose tonight, I may have to rethink all of that. And again, you'll know the results of all this before. So, but yeah, I like that pick. I think the Texas Virginia Tech matchup is also interesting. In that same region too, you have Murray State playing San Francisco. That's a couple of really solid mid majors. I love me a good mid major. Murray State.
I love Murray State.
Going to be. They're so fun to watch. They've got a guy named Tavon Brown who is just a sharpshooter. So look for him to hit some threes. And there's a likely chance they match up with Kentucky in the round of 32 if things go well. And man, that's going to be good. That's
all I'll say
really
is good. I believe Murray State might be one of those George Masons from the years ago, right? Another game that I thought I would mention that I think will be interesting is I love Illinois' big man, but Chattanooga. I've heard a lot of rumblings about Chattanooga. Chattanooga down there, in Chattanooga. But I've heard a lot about Chattanooga and also UAB. There could be a chance we could see a 13-12 matchup in the South region in the round of 32. And that's a realistic possibility if you look at those two teams, wouldn't you say? Because there's always a 13-4. There's always a 13-4 upset, I feel like.
Yeah, that's pretty common. Well, here's the other thing too. In 34 of the last 35 tournaments, there has been a double-digit seed in the Sweet 16. So if you do something like that, where you have both the 13 and 14 winning in the same region, and then they play each other or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So, I mean, that's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. So yeah, if you're still picking your bracket, you're going to want a double digit seed. I've got 2 actually, but you're at least going to want 1 if history tells us anything.
Yeah. And I think, my wife loves Colgate because of the toothpaste, because, obviously Colgate going a long way. She has them going to the Final Four in her bracket. So
amazing. They've got like a 14-game win streak right now. They're feeling good.
I know.
The Raiders.
So what would be for you? Give me 2 underdogs in this tournament that you think no one's really talking about.
That no one's really talking about, because my first instinct was to say South Dakota State, but I've talked about them multiple times already. So I will not. I'm gonna go New Mexico State over UConn in the first round.
Okay.
New Mexico State is a team that has been there before. It feels like they're always at that 12-13 seed line. They're in the mix. They haven't really had a chance to make that big upset, but I feel like this is going to be the year that they do some damage. The other team I'm going to say, and I know we kind of said that, hey, maybe they don't deserve to be at the seed line, is Michigan. I think Michigan has a really good chance. In fact, the BPI is projecting like a 70% chance that Michigan, an 11 seed, upsets Colorado State, the 6 seed. Then they play, in theory, Tennessee, let's just say, in the round of 32. That's a really intriguing game. I know Tennessee's red hot coming off of an SEC championship. But there's only been like 1 team in the last 8 years to win their conference tournament and then win March Madness. It actually doesn't happen as often as you think or might think. So I could easily see Michigan as a Sweet 16 team. And I know their season has been quite tumultuous, but to me, they still have the talent. Hunter Dickinson is just a beast down low, and they've got the talent to make a run. We'll see if they can put it all together. But
yeah, I'm actually going to go, I'm going to go in that same bracket. And you mentioned Tennessee. I'm going Longwood.
Yes.
Longwood is a team that is interesting. Look up their whole story. It's just a really cool.
It's their first tournament appearance too.
It's really cool. Yep. And I'm going to go Longwood as a very strong possibility of an upset here. And then also on top of that, I'm pulling out, where good old Bernie Sanders is from, the Vermont. There's something that tells me about Arkansas, right? Like I've watched them play and they're good, right? They can play, but there's something about these teams that no one really talks about, that they come to March Madness and they're kind of all ticked off. Like, we're here, we made it, but we're not done. So I've watched Vermont a little bit, and they just seem like a team that could make some noise and maybe not win a lot of games, but maybe win 1 or 2, maybe just 1. But I have Vermont there as well. Now, what would you say, Aaron, out of, we look at Ohio State. I'm going to just mention Ohio State now because we're both Ohio State fans. We're both kind of sad the way this whole season's went, I think, a little bit. They face Loyola Chicago. And if you don't know, Loyola Chicago has this ability to just beat teams that they shouldn't be or shouldn't be on the same floor as. It's there could be God behind it. We don't know. We really don't know. So Josh, I said Josh, it's Aaron. I'm so used to saying Josh.
Oh, good. It's force of habit.
It is force of habit. Aaron, so what do you think about Ohio State versus Loyola? What are your thoughts?
I think I'd start with, is Zed Key and Kyle Young, are they going to play? What is their health level? Because that's been the story. If you watch that Ohio State-Penn State game, Ohio State just got throttled in the paint in the Big Ten tournament. And not by the big men necessarily. It was the guards that were slicing through. There was little to no rim protection. And yeah, I know EJ Liddell is a fantastic shot blocker, but if he's guarding a guy on the perimeter, he's going to have a hard time blocking shots. And he also can't block every single shot. Yeah. So that's the first question to me, is what's the health of the team? Because that's been kind of a surrounding issue. There's been multiple surrounding issues for Ohio State. There's been inconsistencies just themselves. They've cost themselves some games, but the injuries have played into it. It feels like Chris Holtmann has never really had the team that he thought he was going to have this season. Yeah. So I think it has to start there. And we'll see what Holtmann can do. If they're not healthy, I struggle to see how they win this game.
And I'm 100% agreeing with you. I've said this for many years. We need to stop recruiting 6'8" guys and go out and get yourself a true 7-footer that can do things, right? Like a Greg Oden again, right? And I agree with you. And my question, I guess, is a thing that I've been thinking of. Is Holtmann's time at Ohio State on the line here? Is this where do we draw the line and go, you have to win some games past the round of 32? I mean, how much more do you keep doing that and give him a shot? Because again, I think Ohio State has the talent to be in the Sweet 16. Do I think they're going to get there? No. But that's my question is, what do you think? Do you think do they give him another year after this, or what do you think he has to show that can keep him his job?
Yeah, I think it's easy to say something like that, assuming we're going to lose this game.
Of course, yeah.
That's fair. And if we do lose this game, and if it's bad, and if Ohio State gets beat by like 15 or 20, then I think it is time to have that conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Part of me thinks, well, 2020 was a COVID year. 2021 was kind of still lingering COVID. At the same time, that did affect everyone. I know it affects people differently. And that's also one of the issues for Ohio State this year. They had 5 or 6 games canceled due to COVID. And so, partially because of COVID issues within their program, partially due to COVID issues with other programs. So that's hard. It just felt like they never got kind of on both feet. And maybe this tournament will be a fresh start and they'll make a run. Yeah, EJ Liddell is one of the best players in the country. And a lot of times you'll see, some of those top players take their team farther than you think they might go. But let's assume, I guess, that does not happen. Yeah, I think next year is a huge test, because if next year they are in the same exact spot and lose in the first game.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have Liddell and you don't have some of these other guys, I mean, they're losing a ton of upperclassmen. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. This is your one shot, I think, to make a run right now. And so again, what is your prediction for the Ohio State Loyola game before we move on to our picks? Totally. What is your pick for the Ohio State Loyola game?
I've got Loyola. I'm going to say 61-53. I think it's going to be, even though Loyola plays, their offense is good. They shoot the ball well. They also defend at a really good clip. They allow just 61.7 points per game. And I think if Ohio State cannot find consistent scoring outside of EJ Liddell, it could. And if Kyle Young, Zed Key are not healthy, it could be a long day for Ohio State. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not feeling super confident.
Well, Aaron, unlike you, I'll die with the pick.
Good for you.
So
good for you.
I'm going Ohio State 65, Loyola 60. I think Sister Jane, is that it? Sister Jane?
I think Sister Jean, yeah.
Sister Jean, yeah. You know what? You have nothing on Ohio State right now, right?
Not yet.
but yeah, so here we go. We're going to go kind of rapid fire, but also kind of explain too. Let's give our first round or let's do a first round upset picks and then just give like a lower seed that's going to go the farthest. Okay. So go ahead. You can start with you.
Yeah. So I mentioned it a couple of times, South Dakota State. I have them in the Sweet 16. I've got them beating Providence. Then I have them beating Iowa, which is tough because Iowa, again, just ran through the Big Ten. That offense is on fire. That Iowa-South Dakota State game is going to be the first team to 300 points wins. Those offenses are electric. I hope we get that matchup because that's going to be insane. I actually have South Dakota State winning that game, eventually losing to Kansas, but that's my biggest upset as far as just how far they're going. I've got a couple other upsets in there too. I've got Iowa State over LSU. If you didn't hear, LSU just fired their head coach. That's kind of a mess. They've just been straight up paying their players for like 6 years. I'm not saying they're the only ones, but apparently they were the only ones dumb enough to get caught at this time. I've got Virginia Tech over Texas. That's an upset. I've got Davidson over Michigan State. That's a 10 over a 7. And I do have Rutgers over Alabama. I've got actually both Big Ten teams winning the first 4 games, winning the first round games. And then I've got that New Mexico State upset that I also talked about.
Man, Aaron's going. And by the way, if you guys don't know, Aaron probably went really in depth thinking about. Actually, Johnny probably went more in depth than both of us combined.
Probably.
And I just want to.
Which is why we'll both do better than him.
Oh, 100%. That's how it works. So these are my upsets, and you tell me what you think. I'm kind of on the same route as you.
Yeah.
I have Rutgers winning both the first 4, and I have them upsetting Alabama. Then I have Davidson beating is that Michigan State? Yes.
Yeah, Michigan State. Yep.
Davidson beating Michigan State. Ever since Steph Curry, Davidson's just been my go-to if they're in a decent matchup. Then I have let's see, Virginia Tech as well. As you, I have Virginia Tech. I have Murray State not only winning their first game, and also I have them beating Kentucky, going to the Sweet 16 to face Purdue.
That's what I have. That's exactly what I have too.
And I have Purdue beating Murray State, but I think it's going to be a talented one. I have Ohio State winning their game against Loyola and losing to Villanova just because it's just going to happen. Then I have I have Miami winning. I don't know if you have them winning. Did you have them winning?
I don't.
Okay. So I for some reason, it must be the USC thing. I don't know. I guess it went Miami on that one. I have Iowa State winning as well. So those are like, I don't really have any teams going far. I have Michigan winning. But I don't really have outside of Murray State. I think I'm kind of maybe I'll change that before, tonight happens, but that's kind of what I have right now. So yeah, let's talk about our Sweet 16. What are the 16 teams you have in your Sweet 16?
Yeah, I'll start in the West. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the West. I've got Gonzaga 1, Duke 2, Texas Tech 3, Arkansas 4, but it gets a little bit more interesting after that. That's the one that's like straight up chalk. East, I've got Baylor the 1, I've got Purdue the 3 seed, UCLA the 4 seed, and I've got Murray State like you do beating San Francisco, then beating Kentucky to get to the Sweet 16. So I've got Murray State. In the Midwest, I've got Kansas, I've got South Dakota State. And this is where I went crazy. This is like the opposite of my West region. I've got Iowa State, the 11 seed in the Sweet 16, and I have USC, the 7 seed in my Sweet 16.
Oh,
yeah. And then to round things out in the South, I've got TCU in the Sweet 16. I've got 5 seed Houston, and then 2 seed Villanova, 3 seed Tennessee.
Oh, okay. You went all diabolical on this. Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
out of those matchups, what's the one you're most likely to see? What's one that you would like to see the most out of that Sweet 16 matchups?
I would say probably Baylor UCLA would be really good because you've got 2 Final Four teams from last year playing in the Sweet 16. Not to mention, like, Baylor's path is playing probably, let's assume North Carolina beats Marquette. Baylor would play Norfolk State win, right? Baylor plays North Carolina. That's really intriguing. Then they play UCLA. Like, you just got some blue bloods that Baylor has to get through. So probably that game.
Nice. Well, mine is pretty simple. I'll tell you that much. In the Sweet 16 in the West, I have Gonzaga, UConn, Texas Tech, Duke. So I went 1, 2, 3, 5. And then in the East, I have pretty simple again. I have Baylor, UCLA, Purdue, Murray State, like you did.
Yep.
In the South, I have Arizona, Illinois, Tennessee, Villanova. So I'm kind of just straight across the board in the South. And in the Midwest, I go Kansas, Iowa, Wisconsin, Auburn. So I'm not like really, again, it's such a I think, and you said this earlier, it's such a, not like a big difference between teams, I think, this year. Mm-hmm. So I think this could be the year we see the more normal, where we see a lot of these top teams. But again, I'm always wrong usually, so this could be it. So we go to the Elite Eight. Give me your matchups in the Elite Eight. There's obviously only 4 games, so pretty quick. Yep. So what is it?
Yeah. Elite Eight in the West, Gonzaga versus Texas Tech, 1-3. In the South, I've got the 5 seed Houston and 2 seed Villanova. And then in the East, I've got UCLA and Purdue. And then in the Midwest, Kansas versus Ben's now least favorite team, USC. I've got USC all the way in my Elite Eight. They're a 7 seed. I don't know what it is about USC, but I like the Pac-12 this year. So I've got USC in the Elite Eight.
Dude, I hope it burns you. I
mean, if Miami wins the first game, then yeah.
That's like my dad's favorite thing because we do like this family challenge. And he lets you know, like if he keeps track of all of them, and if you miss one, he's like, "Oh, you suck now." But mine are actually pretty simple. I have Gonzaga, Texas Tech, like you, in the West. In the East, I have Baylor, Purdue, which I think would be a fun matchup. Yes. Baylor versus Purdue would be a really fun matchup. And then I have Arizona, Tennessee. Now, I know a lot of people in Arizona, they're not thinking they will make it that far. There's something about Arizona, again, in the Pac-12. I agree with you on the Pac-12 thing, is I think they faced a lot of tough teams. And then in the Midwest, get this, I have a Big Ten showdown, Iowa versus Wisconsin, which I think would be an amazing game. I really do. I think it'd be awesome to see, which then leads us to the Final Four. Now, Aaron, we know in the Final Four, there's some crazy things. We look at Butler that did it a couple years, about 10 years ago or so. The Final Four is some of my favorite times growing up as a kid. I loved watching it. And so I want to hear your thoughts. Now, how many times? There's not many times we see 4 number 1 seeds. There's not many times we see even 1 and 2 seeds. There's always that outlier. I'm interested to see, do you have an outlier in your Final Four?
I've got UCLA in my Final Four, which I don't know if that's really an outlier because they're a 4 seed and they were right there last year. So I don't know if that counts, but that's probably the biggest outlier. Because here's the thing. A lot of times you're right. You've got all those crazy upsets, but by the time you get to the Elite Eight, by the time you get to the Final Four, it typically kind of evens out, right? Like you don't see just all 1 seeds. That's super rare. I think the last time that might've happened was like the year was like Georgetown, Kevin Love, UCLA Bruins, like way back when. But you do see a lot of just like 1, 2, 3 seeds. So I might've been crazy with, USC in the Elite Eight. I might've been crazy with Arizona getting bounced in the second round, but I still have pretty traditional seeding. So I've got Gonzaga in the Final Four. I've got UCLA, Villanova, and Kansas. What about you?
Ooh, well, I have I think a tremendous matchup.
Okay.
Gonzaga and Baylor. I think that could be I love Gonzaga this year. I've been a Gonzaga, like that is a team that I love watching. I mean, they have probably the best player in the draft coming out. I mean, he's super skinny, but he's a freak. And then I have on the other one, I have Wisconsin beating Iowa. Yeah. And they'll be facing Tennessee. So I have a 1-1 and a 3-3. So yeah, there's something about Tennessee. Maybe it's just them orange uniforms, that just get me going. And I think Tennessee's deserves to be back. I think the one thing I say about Wisconsin is people have kind of it's weird about Wisconsin. They have one really good scorer, obviously. And I feel like they always play good defense. I think ever since me and you have been kids, Wisconsin's always played good defense. And I think it'll be interesting to see an SEC matchup versus Big Ten in basketball and see that physicality. But the more interesting thing is, can Baylor repeat? And that's the interesting point. And we're going to see who your national title game is, because mine probably won't be that interesting. But I'm interested to see who you got going to the national championship.
Yeah. Well, real quick, to your point about Tennessee, when I look at my bracket, I'm like, oh man, I think I'm sliding the SEC because they have the most top 6 seeds of any conference. They've got 6 of those. Yeah. And I don't have any of them in my Final Four, and I really don't have that many in my Elite Eight. So that's probably going to come back to bite me. But my championship, I've got Gonzaga beating UCLA. I have Villanova beating Kansas. And then I have Gonzaga beating Villanova. I love Villanova. They've got one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country. They shoot free throws 82%. And that means a lot when you come to this. I believe if my memory serves me correct, it's 82% as a team. That's really, really good. Yes. And that's really important this time of year. And they've got some veterans on that team. But I'm with you. I really like Gonzaga. I think this is the year they put it together. And I know Gonzaga fans have said that for a long time. Will this be the year? They've been to the championship game 2 of the last 4 years. They just have not been able to put it together. I'm saying that this is the year.
And you know what, Aaron, we might not have been on pace back at the beginning there. It got a little chaotic, but
we're
definitely on pace. Yes.
Yeah.
I have Gonzaga beating Baylor, and I think it's going to be pretty handily. And I don't say that lightly. I think Gonzaga can handle pretty easily. And the one thing about Gonzaga I love, and I think you might go on this too, Gonzaga is always deep. They always have depth, which is something that Ohio State has never had, it feels like, and all the time I've watched them. But Gonzaga beating Baylor. Then I have Tennessee beating Wisconsin. And then I have Gonzaga beating Tennessee like 70-60. I agree with you. I think this is the year I've been rooting for people that root for Gonzaga because it's a team that, they've always been good. Adam Morrison, I think that's his name, right? Way back when, like ever since him, that was the time that I remembered, the Gonzaga for the first time. So that's what I have. Gonzaga versus Tennessee. Aaron, before we finish up, is there any thoughts in this tournament? What would you like to, is there anything you're looking forward to? Maybe spending time with friends, family. What are some of these things you're looking forward to these next few weeks?
Yeah. Real quick note about Gonzaga. Yeah. I think the best thing that happened to them this year is that they lost to St. Mary's.
I agree.
That is the best thing that happened to them because they faced adversity. Remember last year they're in this situation. They had that cloud of, will this be another perfect season, which hasn't happened since I believe the 80s. That's not anywhere in the realm of discussion now. They've lost. And I actually love the fact that they lost and did avenge that loss in the West Coast Conference Championship game to St. Mary's. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm just super excited. March Madness is so much fun.
This always is like when we get in trouble as males. I feel like this is the one few weeks that luckily I'm on my spring break this week. So
yeah, that's good.
I can catch a few of the games. You're right. So, but I'm interested to see what is one thing that what are you guys doing? Are you guys having like anything with Fifth and Goal podcast with March Madness here in the next few weeks? Is there any plans for that?
Yeah, depending on when this comes out, if it's not too late, we are doing a Fifth and Goal bracket challenge on ESPN. If you are making a bracket on ESPN, you can just search in groups Fifth and Goal. Follow us on Instagram at Fifth and Goal Sports. There's actually rules there that just kind of explain the contest, and you can actually win some money if you get first, second, or third place. So do that.
I finished second in the bowl challenge, by the way.
You did, yes.
Second.
Yes, you did. Yep, that's pretty good. Yeah, I think my cousin got first place actually, but yeah, there's already like 25 to 30 brackets there, which honestly is not a lot if you're trying to win some money. So yeah, check that out. But yeah, we'll be doing that. We'll be posting stuff on Twitter. I know again, like this is going to happen after this comes out, but Johnny and I will be at the first four. We'll be, trying to get some videos to you guys. So we're on Twitter. We're, like you guys are, we're always trying to put as much content out as we can about this because we just love it. I mean, I can't get enough March Madness. If I wasn't going to the games tonight, I'm the guy that watches the first four games and then flips back and sees what's going on in the NIT tournament. Like I probably have issues that need to get checked out, but I absolutely love it. What a time of year this is. Make some plans so you can cancel them so you can just watch basketball all day long this weekend. Man, what a time. And I think we're going to get some insane games. We're going to get some great upsets as we usually do. Man, what a time of year.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I remember when I watched it during my ACT prep back in high school and I got in trouble at school, didn't care because I said March Madness is life, right? No. But honestly, thank you so much, Aaron, for, jumping on. If you guys haven't yet, go over to watch his podcast. You guys stream it on what day of the week?
Yeah, we stream Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we just started streaming on our YouTube channel. So we did that yesterday, and I think it went pretty well. So we're going to continue to do that, and we also have past live streams there as well.
Yeah. So check him out. Go ahead and do that. He's doing some great things. I've known Aaron for quite a while, and the guy loves sports. Johnny loves it more than both of us combined, maybe times 70. But no.
I'd fight him a little bit. I think I'd like sports a little bit, but you're right. He's obsessed, which is great.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Aaron. We appreciate it. All the love to all the blessings to you guys, and hope you guys continue to grow because you're doing some amazing things over there. And I really appreciate listening to you guys because it gives Josh and I something to debate in our own podcast that we can then, turn that on each other. But
and same to you guys. It's exciting to see all the content that you guys are putting out. I've been following your mock drafts and all that stuff. It's a fun time of year. I mean, but yeah, we'll finish this March Madness tournament, and then before you know it, it'll be NFL draft time. It'll be Major League opening day. So yeah, just kind of keeps rolling on. But yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Of
Always
course.
a good time to talk basketball. So
of course. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys. If you guys love watching on YouTube, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, subscribe button, all the jazz.
Do it.
Because I'm coming up with not just videos of the podcasts, but also there's interviews. I just did an interview with Titus Dean from CW University men's basketball team. We talked about music and we talked about basketball, and it's a really cool interview. Go check it out. And then also my wife and I did a video of her bracket coming out. So you'll be able to see that. It might already be out when you watch this, but anyways, you'll be able to see all that. So yeah, it's
real
quick
question, Ben.
Yeah.
Have you made any fun brackets? Like not trying to pick them correct.
100%,
okay,
100%.
Which ones? I got to hear this.
So mine is called the doubtful to be right bracket.
Okay.
And I have Vermont in my Final Four.
Nice.
I have Yale, and I have Colgate, and I have Longwood. So I have a solid. This is my makeup. Doubtful it will ever happen bracket. So do you have one? I'm sure you have one.
Yeah, especially in college when Johnny and Josh, both my co-hosts on the Fifth and Goal podcast, were right next to each other. Like we'd probably on Sunday night stay up to like 1 or 2 making just completely stupid brackets. So one of them, just a classic, who would win in a fight between the mascots. That's a classic. One that I personally love is the famous alumni bracket. So basically you real quick Google or Wikipedia search the most famous alumni from that school. It cannot be an athlete. There is some stipulations there, but a team like Michigan actually does really well because James Earl Jones, if you don't know who that is, he is the voice of Darth Vader. He's the voice
if they
of
don't
Mufasa.
know that, if they don't know who that is, then they just need to stop listening. Is what means that.
Correct. Yeah. Go listen to him read the King James Bible on YouTube. It's incredible. Anyways, all that to say, Michigan does really well because how are you going to compete against Darth Vader and Mufasa? Good luck. USC does pretty well because like Will Ferrell, and they've got a bunch of Hollywood actors that do pretty well. But so yeah, that's what I usually like to do. So that's pretty fun.
I love that. And that's a great point. It's a great point.
And it'll probably do better than my normal bracket too.
That always happens. My mom always wins. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
Mom will always win. But yeah, thank you so much, Aaron. I appreciate it. And we'll see you all next time. I'll be back on with Josh next week. We'll be talking about the NFL and MLB. So tune in for that next week. And until then, we'll see ya.